Welcome to the Mind Like Books podcast. My name is Philip. I like to consider myself to be a man. So right off the bat, I'd like to assert dominance. Like to make it clear that I'm the alpha male in this room. Moreover, let's also make it clear what the chain of command is here. So Private Paul here is to refer to me as Sir from now on and speak only when he is addressed. How are you doing, Paul?
I don't know about this whole alpha male thing.
Alpha male, Sir, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm good. So I didn't know you got so much out of this book.
Sir.
Sir.
Because obviously I'm going to be the corporal here.
Well, I can leave any time I want, isn't it? That's part of the book. I can just walk up.
Okay.
It's voluntary.
It's voluntary.
Yes.
But one way or the other, we are men on this podcast. There are no women welcome on this episode.
Oh. Wow, okay. Alright.
Because this book is for real men. I feel like this is the ultimate male, like, not fantasy, but satisfactory reading.
That's probably why it appealed so much to me.
Exactly. That's why I became Private Paul now.
Shouldn't it be corporal?
Okay, I don't know any of these ranks.
Didn't you learn anything from the book?
When I started reading this book, I was like, Google military ranking, lieutenant, corporal, marshal, major. I have no idea. So you can pick.
I want to be lieutenant.
Okay, Lieutenant Paul.
I think that's higher than you.
You've been promoted immediately. So today we're talking Starship Troopers. Thanks you so much for joining me on this manly adventure.
I'm glad to introduce something new.
I wanted to read this for a long time, but I never thought I actually would read it because I didn't care that much. And it was another one of those classic, I'm gonna be probably disappointed if I read them.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I love this book. It's probably the best book we've had on this podcast, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. Well, what appealed to you about it?
This book has no fat. It's like straight to the point. And it's saying something very clearly. And it's not being preachy about it. And it's actually self-deprecating in parts.
Yeah, it doesn't kind of hit you with a sledgehammer either.
Which is amazing because it's super, like, on one hand, it's like on the nose, telling you all these things so hard. And on the other hand, the main character is like, whatever, I don't care about this. And it's also showing, like, the other point of view, which doesn't happen in literature very much. Actually having two conflicting points of view portrayed with the same strength.
I think the other thing too is that with a lot of the Heinlein books I've read, it's really accessible.
Yes.
Even though it's supposed to be hard sci-fi, and he's sort of like the pioneer of accurate science fiction, because he was like he was an engineer as well. But yeah, it's so easy to read, and like it kind of doesn't bog you down on any kind of details and things like that. I was watching a YouTube video of a guy comparing Heinlein's book. Double Star, which is a Hugo award-winning book, versus one of your favorite authors, Asimov's Caves of Steel or something. I think
you haven't listened to our Foundation episode where we collectively hated on our Foundation.
Where he said Heinlein just sort of gets into the story, gets it flowing, gets you into it, moves the book along, moves the plot along. Where Asimov has to explain everything about sort of the details of the proton brain or...
Exactly. It doesn't get bogged down with anything. And it's amazing to me that they don't have hardly any action in this book.
Yeah, which is surprising because the movie is so different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book does something that is impossibly hard to me to even imagine to do if you are a writer, and that is to have extremely boring, like, military ranking, like, whatever topics, but somehow put them in a way that's compelling and interesting and saying something.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I wouldn't think is possible.
No,
That's why I liked it so much.
Yeah. I was reading some reviews about it. Even some female readers were saying, well, this book completely sort of went against my expectations.
Yes, me too. I didn't expect this at all. I was hoping for the massacre bug war. And it was kind of there, but that wasn't the point at all.
No. So, are you a fascist now?
I'm not sure. We shall discuss that further. I wanted to say that it's similar to me, like recently I finished playing a video game called Nier Automata. Have you heard of that?
Is that a Japanese one?
Yes.
With the female.
Yes.
She's kind of like...
super sexualized.
Yeah.
Primetime male media here. Like
I've only seen pictures of it.
You're men on this podcast, so you have to talk about manly things. Boobs and like anime girls. So in this game, you're lured in by boobs and anime characters that are sexualized, and then you expect battles and anime bullshit, but you're bombarded with philosophy and the meaning of life and actual realization of what it means to be human. And I was like, what? I didn't ask for this. Why are you hitting me with philosophy? Same happened with this. I expected bug wars and real men. And as real men, we also like to dabble in philosophy. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we can get into more detail about that later. So
Yep.
we should give a bit of background about Heinlein himself.
Yeah.
He's actually quite an interesting guy, actually.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, where should we start?
Well,
So, actually, the interesting thing about him and Asimov, they were in the military together. There's actually photos of them working
I've seen
together.
those,
Yeah. Do you know how long he was in the Navy before?
no, I just know he was there. And he was very much involved with the military.
Yeah, I think it's like 6 or 7 years or something like that. Maybe. I think he's a aeronautical engineer. Yes. So, yeah, I found about Asimov. They came to know each other and worked together at the Philadelphia Naval Yard in World War II. As civilian experts doing military research. They were never really close friends, but they kind of respected each other's work. But they come from very different sort of political viewpoints as well.
One of the biggest points about Heinlein is that he was a huge advocate of the nuclear weapons testing program.
Yes.
Which I was surprised. I didn't know any of this. I was reading about the history, which wasn't successful when he was trying to push it.
No, but his political life actually sort of started... He's always a libertarian, but he started quite on the left, where he was actually... I think he ran as a Democrat for a Californian seat. I think he supported a particularly socialist Democrat for governor as well. He worked on that campaign. You know, he was very libertarian, very libertine as well, which comes across a lot in his books. But he was like, yeah, we need nuclear weapons because we can't surrender to the Soviets. And that kind of comes up later as well with some of his speeches that we watched as well.
You sent me a speech and he was speaking. I imagined Heinlein. I was thinking about him. I imagined him as this like old fart uncle sitting at a party, getting drunk, and you know this guy. Everybody gets this guy somewhere in his family, in their families.
Someone's uncle.
Yeah. And he comes to the party and he's sitting in the corner and he's like, "Those damn youths, these teenagers, they don't know what it was like when I was growing up. They didn't know what it was to experience hardship. They haven't been molded by overcoming obstacles. You know what it's like to be men." That's this guy.
Yeah.
But he's right. And you know, he's right at some points at least.
But he also admits when he's wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. And he starts to come off as this bastard uncle, but then he's like, oh, he's got a point. And he's not afraid to admit that he is being obnoxiously obnoxious.
Well, I mean, there's a part, was it the WorldCom convention speech or something? That was the one I think I sent you. He's accepting the award. He says that we can't have peace and freedom.
Yes.
We can't have peace and freedom.
At the same time.
We can't have it at the same time. And some people started applauding, other people started booing him, stuff like this. And he said, look, men, there will always be war and we always have to defend women and children, kind of thing. And when I watched that a couple of years ago, I was like, yeah.
And you've become the uncle bastard yourself.
Well, I mean, in the current political situation in the world, it's like, maybe he had a point.
Yeah. I don't want to get into this right now, but we've already started talking about it. This is a discussion that is happening in the book, and obviously right now what's happening in the world. Not to date this podcast or whatever, but it's always the same question. Like, is this a self-fulfilling prophecy? Can we overcome it? Is this innate human nature? Are we always going to wage war?
Yeah.
All this. So I in my opinion, both is true. Like, obviously it's not going to change easily.
No.
But I want to have faith that it's not true. It's my point of view.
Yeah, I would like to be optimistic about that too. But I mean, sometimes we have to stand up.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's sort of the state of the world sometimes, I think.
But they're only talking about the thing to stand up. They're not talking about the Like, what I would appreciate if it was in this book was to go more into is this conflict necessary? Like, can we do it in another way? That's not discussed at all, like, the point of view. Like, it's just like, it's necessary sometimes, so obviously you have to do it. And if you're doing it, this is how we do it. And that's how it makes sense, of course. But he's kind of skipping the logical question that, really have to do this way?
Yeah,
You really have to fight? Like, can't you talk it out with the alien bugs that are going to eat your face off?
Well, they attacked us first.
That's exactly
they're the aggressor. So
that's exactly the point. Yes.
Yeah, things are complex. I really don't want to see the world into kind of a binary point of
Obviously,
view.
there's never a yes or no answer.
Yes, sometimes there's just no kind of clear answer.
And that's another thing I like about this book. He gets into these questions and he tries to give you the facts or the points in a way that it's so strange. Like, it's so preachy. Like, it's literally a guy teaching about it. And at the same time, it's justified and not so preachy.
Yeah, I remember when I first asked you about your opinion of it, you kind of said, yeah, it was kind of preachy, but you kind of agreed with it.
Of course.
So, I mean, he doesn't hit you with like that sledgehammer kind of a viewpoint. When I was listening to the book, especially in the sort of the classroom discussions, and the teacher would ask this question, and I'd be like, oh, wow, that's actually a really good question. And I kind of stop and pause and think about it, and like, I don't really have an answer for that.
Yeah. It's very nice in that way. It makes you think about important issues. And it's hard to disagree with what he's saying, which is this image of this, like, he knows what he's saying. He's a bastard, but he's saying the truth. And that's why he hates him. But he's got a point, so we have to deal with it. That's why it's controversial, this book.
When you finished reading it, did you feel that it was controversial?
Not at all. But I am a white male in a very comfortable spot in my life. I've never experienced war directly.
True.
And I am sure that if I experienced war in any sense, as many people might be right now in other parts of the world, they could get very upset with this book.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of have to look at it where he was coming from. He's a military man. He's an engineer. He was growing up in the period of the Cold War. But on the other hand, too, like, yeah, he was a white male, but I mean, for his time, he was very anti-racist. We can talk about that as well in his books. Often they introduce this character, and you'd be like, oh, this character is really interesting. And then he would just casually mention, oh, this character is black, or this character is Asian. And that was like in the 50s and 60s in sort of segregated America. That was quite sort of radical at the time as well.
That's true.
The women in his books are usually they're very highly sexualized. That's another thing about Heinlein, as we'll talk about a bit later. But they're also very competent.
Yes.
The women get the job done as well.
It's exactly what we're talking about. They are sexualized, but at the same time they are like empowered.
Yeah.
Like they are respected.
Yes.
They are viewed as good people and important people and everything. People, not women and objects. But at the same time they're sexualized and it's so funny. But both at the same time.
Do you know anything about Heinlein's personal life?
No.
Oh yeah, he was married 3 times. I don't know much about his first wife. His second marriage was an open marriage. And they're married quite a while. They're both kind of getting around a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, we kind of practice what he preached. The other thing too, though, his books, probably why I like him, is like, the male character is usually this highly competent man. And that was the whole theme of Heinlein's book, the competent man. And the woman is also very competent, but she's often younger, and she's like, hey, let's get married anytime, straight away. And, you can keep, seeing other girls too. That's cool. You got this big family of women.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes through on his books a bit. He was a very libertine kind of guy and was very much sort of, especially Stranger in the Strange Land was very much written as like a counterculture book. There's a lot of sex in that book. And that was like 1961.
Okay.
This is kind of quite radical too at the time.
I'm interested. I've never read any of the other books.
I think Stranger in a Strange Land, if you're feeling like, you're in a foreign country or you don't have many people to talk to or things like that, it's actually a good book to read.
All right, I'm very interested in both. The moon is the harsh mistress, and the Stranger in the Strange Land. I would like to read both. I became kind of a fan of his.
Yeah, some of these other ones as well that I would probably say to check out would be Double Star is a good book, really easy to read. One of his earlier books. He did kind of go through 3 stages of first these like juvenile novels for targeting kind of younger kids.
So that's not this one?
No, I think it was sort of mid Heinlein, I think.
Okay.
And then the later Heinlein as well.
So this one, Starship Troopers, is which category?
I think it's a mid.
Okay.
So I think he wrote it as a response to Eisenhower's proposal to halt kind of nuclear atmospheric testing or something like that. One of his ones that probably is still kind of controversial and I think maybe a little bit misunderstood is Farnham's Freehold, which kind of really goes into the whole race issue.
Okay.
I read it as a guy that just seemed like he despised racism, and other people read it like, oh, this is like someone from the Klan has written this, and it's like, what? I think you missed the whole point of the book, because he was very sort of anti-racist. The main character in Starship Troopers is from which country? You missed it.
I forgot. Well, there is something like Puerto Rico or something.
No, he's not Puerto Rican. He's Filipino.
Filipino, okay.
Yeah, but it's mentioned far later.
As
it's a thing. It's not an important point.
That's what it should be.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just to finish talking about Heinlein, we didn't finish that he supported the nuclear testing, but it was very unsuccessful, and he found himself under attack from everybody. Science fiction writers, science fiction readers, anti-military protests. So he had things to say, and he wasn't afraid to say them. And I wanted to finish what I wanted to say. We watched his speech, and I was imagining how he was speaking, and he speaks exactly how I imagined. So funny. He's bold, and he's got this facial I'm gonna tell you what it's like to be the man that you should be, and if you're not manly enough, get out.
He does look very virile. So.
It's very funny. And at the lecture, I went to put a clip here. So
okay, sure.
I'll play a clip. He says the quote you mentioned, and then everybody's like, boo!
Not everybody. There's some boos. But he acknowledges them.
And that's wonderful. I very much like that.
But don't kid yourself that there will not be war. And don't kid yourself that there will not be survivors. The most ridiculous statement I've ever heard is one that was attached to a splinter political party. Peace and freedom, peace and freedom. You can have peace or you can have freedom, but you don't get both at once. Yes, I heard both the applause and the boos.
Can you imagine that now?
Yeah, that wouldn't fly at all.
It would just go into a big fucking shouting match or something. Yeah, it just turned into a real shit show, I think.
So it's. I'm so conflicted about this because it's sad that we can't have freedom of speech, sort of, anymore because of social media. And at the same time, it's kind of bad what he's saying, but it's necessary and it's true.
Yeah, I mean, as well, people did challenge him on that.
So this book, I love it for being able to see this idea from a point of view of a person who can understand subtext and levels of meaning. If you're a person who's gonna read this and not think about it very much and take it as it is, as the surface level meaning, it's gonna be what it's. I don't know if it's trying to do that, but it's gonna be understood as military propaganda, be a soldier and be a man, and this is what gives meaning to your life.
Yeah, I mean, you could come at it as this is just, it's a military story because they're at war and it's in the military.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you take it that value, maybe if you just look at it that context, that's fine, I think. As in, this is a war story. But one good thing with Heinlein is you could actually just read the story and you could enjoy it, or you can start sort of peeling back the layers, and there are many, many layers. And when we started talking about doing this podcast for this book, and I started doing a bit more research about deeper meanings, you can go down a rabbit hole in this book. I wasn't expecting it like that. I just thought, this is a fun read.
That's why this is, I think, controversial, because it's dangerously easy to absorb, and then you have so much meaning to be influenced by, I guess.
I think it's also, it could be dangerous to misunderstand as well.
Because I want to say two things. One thing is, please think when you read this. Like that's why this is one of the recommended, sometimes compulsory reading for the military. I didn't know. Somebody told me.
I've heard that too. I'm not sure how true it is.
I checked, and it was...
it's on the reading list?
It's on the reading list.
Okay.
And recently, 2 years ago, they revised the reading list for the Marines, for example, and they changed it up. But it's still like super recommended. Like if you're in the military, eventually you're gonna be told to read this, which makes complete sense because it gives meaning to being a soldier. And that's why it's appealing to men.
But there are women who make the best pilots.
Second thing I want to mention is that it's very similar to me as the Fight Club. Have you read Fight Club?
Yes, and I watched the movie, of course. I have the Blu-ray. Because I'm a man's man.
Have you got the 10th anniversary Blu-ray with all the extras?
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that's the fun I went to get, but I couldn't get it.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
Okay.
So, Fight Club is a very interesting book in the sense that if you think about it, it gives you a lot to learn. But if you don't think about it, it just makes you become an anarchist.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. Like, it's super interesting and fun to read and easy to read. And it's, at the same time, therefore dangerous for people who just absorb information without questioning anything.
Yeah, I would kind of be very skeptical of someone actually doing that because, I mean, the classroom discussions, there's a lot of questions that I said that actually make you pause and think. And if you're not actually kind of absorbing that, I think you're just kind of not even reading the book.
And the character in the book is like, oh, these questions were difficult, and he told us this and that, and the guy died, so I'm done with that. Goodbye, I'm going to bed. Which I loved this part.
What part was that?
It was one of the lessons. And
was that Dubois or in the...
After the Dubois lesson,
okay.
The main character of the book, he was like, fuck this, I'm just going to bed, it's done. And that, literally, the book is literally telling you, okay, think about this. This is not a light matter to just dismiss. And I'm afraid that most people would dismiss it. If you're listening to this podcast, you're not that person. But there are many people who need to read this book and take it for its meaning that's not the surface level meaning. And I'm very afraid that they're not gonna do that. So that's why this book is controversial. It's great, but it's not great for the thing you see at the first glance. It's great for the things it implies.
Yeah, I would hope it would actually kind of challenge a lot of people's...
That's what I hope this book does.
Yes.
And many people didn't see that, and that's why they hate it, I think.
Yeah. Well, no, as I said, like recently digging around on reviews, a lot of people kind of came into it with that kind of opinion that this is controversial, it's a right-wing book, it's propaganda, da-da-da. And when they finished, they're like, oh, no, it completely wasn't that. It's completely sort of changed my
And it's wonderful that it's telling you to do this in the book. The main character literally is not able to consider these ideas.
Yeah.
And telling you to think about them and then being like guilty about not understanding them and being lectured about them. It's all a level of commentary on top of each other, which I wonder how intentional this was when he wrote it first. I would almost guess that it wasn't at all, and then it suddenly like came out when he was writing it. Like he wasn't planning to do that.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
So you grok it?
Grok it?
Maybe grok. Some terms that Heinlein kind of came up with that have kind of permeated into English speech. Grok it, like understand it. Do you get it? Do you feel it?
Okay, so
that was from Stranger in a Strange Land.
I didn't get. No, sorry.
I said, so you grok
I have
it.
to read more.
Yeah. Tinstafel. So there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's from Moon is the harsh mistress. So yeah, some of these things that people use probably don't even realize is actually from Heinlein.
So coming up in the future on the My Deck Books podcast, Fight Club, probably the next episode, because it's in my mind very connected to this. And then Moon is the harsh mistress. I want to read that and other stuff as well because
you know, like 2 points about Fight Club, just on a slight tangent because it's quite funny. Well, one's not funny. Is Chuck Palahniuk actually liked the movie better than his book.
I heard that, yes.
And on the Blu-ray, he actually does a commentary on one of the tracks. Yeah. Second thing that came out was quite funny recently about Fight Club. The Chinese recent release of Fight Club. Did you hear that?
No.
So the Fight Club, the famous ending of the movie, the banks blow up, everything. And the Chinese one, it doesn't happen. It goes to a black screen and says the terrorists were arrested. And then Tyler gets sent to a mental asylum and gets released a few years later. And the police won.
Amazing.
You can find it. Just Google it and you can see that actually it just goes to black and there's people like, yeah.
Yeah, so you feel free to join us with Pablo on the next Fight Club episode if you want to. Felt like it's very relevant to this book.
Okay.
Yeah, so Heinlein is a pretty interesting person. Definitely not dumb. Definitely not boring.
Just a comment. When I was a teenager, my friends like, "Oh, read this book. This guy is like really amazing. Like it's Asimov." And I started reading it. Oh, this is fucking boring. I can't even get through it. I was like, he came up with the rules about robotics and all this shit. And I think everyone who knows something about sci-fi or books has heard of Asimov.
Of course.
Well, until about 3 years ago, I've never heard of Heinlein.
Yeah, he's coming back maybe, because people are discussing these issues recently.
Okay. But have you heard of him before?
I knew of him, but I didn't care about him.
Alright.
Like, I was like, this book happened. I know the Starship Troopers. I heard the name, like, The Moon is the Harsh Mistress. It's kind of familiar, but I was like, I don't care because it's one of those classic old books I'm gonna hate. And it's the best old classic so far on this podcast that was actually good.
Did it actually feel like an old book? Huh?
In parts.
Okay.
But not really. Yeah. It's very readable. Like I said, there's no fat. It's only 200 something pages. Yeah. It was really fun to read, which was very surprising based on how much philosophy they're shoving down your throat, including military structure and stuff.
Should we talk about any differences? The differences between the movie and the book?
I want to say about the movie that I appreciate it so much because it went in a completely different direction while still having the same like it's understood the book. Like the person who made the movie understood the book for what it was.
Oh, I would disagree on that actually. Are you talking about the screenwriter or the director?
I don't know. The guy who made the screenwriter.
Okay, because the director is
Paul Verhoeven.
Yes. He didn't even read the book. He read 2 chapters and he threw it down and said, "This is in propaganda." I can't do a Dutch accent. I'm from Holland, isn't that weird? Anyway. So he didn't read the book, and then the screenwriter made a copy of it for him. And he came at this is like fascism kind of thing. But it was like the movie as well was still has a fascist paint job, but it's not fascist. Because
it's making fun of it.
Yeah, but it doesn't get the point of in fascism, you serve the state. Where in Starship Troopers, it's reversed.
Okay.
You serve to become a citizen, but it's voluntarily. You don't have to join. It's a capitalist society.
I don't remember the movie, what they say.
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So he kind of misunderstands the book, I think. Well, he didn't even read the book. He's just from a very, very left.
There's nothing from the book in the movie, like hardly anything, but it's the spirit of the book I feel like kind of shines through because he's like saying things very bluntly while being self-referential and like self-critical about it and poking fun at issues in the military.
I love the movie, I do, but I just think it's sort of it misses the point of the book.
It's not the point of the book at all, but it's like the same style of making a point as the book is. That's what I want to say.
Okay.
That's why I like the movie.
All right. No, I love the movie. I think it's great, but I just think they're completely 2 different pieces.
It's same in the sense that it's great fun, and then when you actually think about it, you can actually get something out of it. Like, they actually have a commentary on something. It's not just blind explosive killing bugs fun.
I guess as well, like in the movie, the teacher's name is...
Yeah, it's the same. This Dubois, I think. Is it not?
No, they combined 2 characters.
Oh, they combined the corporal...
Yeah, Rajnik.
Yes,
whatever.
oh yes.
Yeah, and Dubois.
Maybe they combine with 3 people, because there's Rajnik, and then there's the other guy, and then there's the other guy.
Jelly, or Jelova, or whatever, I forgot his name. The names are the same. You know, he had some good things. I like the shower scene the best.
Everybody always talks about it.
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't really have the internet that much. That was kind of like...
That's definitely a part of this movie.
Yeah, there's only kind of boobs you could get.
Before the internet.
Yeah. You had to hunt in the forest for pornography.
Before we... When I was your age, the cool janitor gave us porn, not the internet.
Exactly. Young people don't know how good you got it.
And this movie was definitely like, it's not porn, but actually it's porn, and you can actually see it for the first time.
Yeah.
Deal. Yeah. That's how old we are.
Yes, I'm quite old.
You're not that old.
All right.
Yeah, we should wrap this non-spoiler part up. There's no point in saying that we recommend this. Who do we recommend this to? It's a difficult thing to say. I would be very curious to get a woman's point of view on this.
Okay.
And I don't think I will get Chen or anybody who's a woman to read this. That's why I started this podcast with, we are men.
Why wouldn't you get a woman to read it? What
Because-
would you think is offensive to them?
There is nothing offensive, but it's not at all interesting for a woman's point of view. Like the Broken Earth trilogy, we covered extensively on this podcast. It's a very interesting counter point of view to this book, which has a very similar, like, confident. It says confidently things about what it's like to be a woman in a difficult time and how you should deal with problems and how you should live your life to overcome issues from a very feminine point of view, and I really appreciate the Broken Earth trilogy, and it's so fresh on the other side like this book, and that's why this book will never appeal to women, because it's just so much for men. Like everything in this book is so men.
Yeah.
There are no emotions to be had. There are no female characters to be thought about. There are no relationships to be discussed unless it's a military stated chain of command. There is you are freed of worry, emotion, stress, and like indecisiveness, which is so freeing to men.
But just as a small counterpoint, not really, but the main female character in the book at the beginning, and she pops up later again.
Yeah. In the movie, it's Carmen.
Yeah,
Then it's Richards.
Yes. She's got a weird nose. And she's got that. He's drawing her on the tablet, and she turns around. She's got this really kind of pointy.
She's got I don't remember that he was doing her.
Kind of creeps me out. Anyway, the main female character, she's extremely intelligent. She's space pilots, only women, because they're the only ones that can kind of land and take off without causing accidents or
They
problems.
explain it that women can endure more G's than
Yes,
men, which
yep.
is true.
Yeah, he meets her again later in the book. And she's shaved her head.
That's what I meant to mention. So,
But he still says, "Wow, she's so beautiful."
which is exactly the same point about this book. So it's like this woman. She's like, okay, she's empowered and she's a good person and she's great, everything. And then the main character is like, if it's a nice girl and she shaved her head, I guess it doesn't matter.
I'm like, yeah,
It's true. He literally says, if she was sexy before she shaved her head, it doesn't
she's
matter
so
to
sexy.
me.
What's an apple's still an apple? What the fuck's your problem?
Which is this funniest shit, because it's literally the same point and contradicting itself at the same time. It's so funny. It's like,
See, I read that and I'm like, I get it. I grok it. I'm just a different generation. All right, so we're getting to the spoilers now.
if you want to read this, I don't think it will spoil you. So if you're curious about this book and you want to read it, I don't think if I listened to what we're going to talk about, it would do anything for me as far as enjoyment of this book is concerned.
No, definitely not.
So we're going to talk about the ideas, and like the main part we like about this book is the philosophical lessons from Mr. Dubois, which is so funny to say. There is a plot, but it's not the point at all. So if you're there in for the plot, you might as well not read this, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, because I went into it as well, like not knowing anything about the book. You know, if you explained it to me like, oh, it's just like a kind of a philosophical discussion, I'd be like, I don't want to read this.
Exactly. That's why it's not presented that way.
No, but it kept me going. So there's something in there that kind of hooks you, I think. I'm not sure what it is.
Me neither. That's why this is good. I think he does it in a way that you're convinced that he's gonna tell you something you disagree with. And you go into this with a super critical mind, because they start this pretentious lecture in the book, and Mr. Dubois is like, oh, I'm gonna tell you about morality, listen, you idiots. And you're like, okay, this is gonna be dumb. And then you're like, okay, it's not that dumb. And then they ask the questions you talked about, and you're like, okay, I don't know his answers either. And they're like, okay, he's got a point. And he completely changes your point of view, so that's why it works. And that's why you enjoy it, because you're interested how he did it.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you want to listen to our spoiler section, I encourage you to do so, because there's nothing much to spoil other than to think about what the book is about.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're reading and you don't want to be spoiled, just hit stop now.
You've had 70 years to read the book. Come on, guys. All right, so let's get into the spoilers, I think.
I don't want to describe everything in detail, but very short summary of the actual plot is that there is a war with the bugs, which I was excited to read about because of the movie. I like the bugs and the aliens. I was in for the aliens. This takes place 700 years in the future. The Terran Federation is waging war with just the bugs. We don't even know what they're called.
And also the skinnies.
Which weren't in the movie, and they don't talk about them that much. How did you feel about the skinnies?
They don't talk about it that much. They come up at the beginning where they're kind of doing that kind of raid. Sort of just show again, like not to wipe them out or destroy the town, but just to show our force. And that was kind of a military concept as well.
So the book begins with a super action scene, kill a bunch of skinnies, which we don't know what they are, with military armor and superpower, super rockets. Everything explodes and it's like a super action-packed scene, and then 2 casualties, 2 soldiers. So the skinnies, my question is, can they communicate?
Well, they must communicate, because later in the book they actually become allies.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
but they never get into that. It's
well, again, that's sort of a Heinlein thing. He won't give you enough. Kind of gives you enough to kind of get you intrigued, but he's not going to sit down and explain it to you. First action scene kind of ties into later in the book, where it's like, we weren't there to kill him or wipe him out. We're just there to show our force because we're planning to kind of ally with them later against the arachnids or the bugs.
Plans within plans.
Yes.
Dune reference.
No idea what you're talking about. I will never read that book.
You don't have to.
I don't want to.
I hope you listen to our 100th episode podcast about Dune. Coming up on episode 100.
How many episodes will that be? Like
100.
10?
100.
Okay.
Yeah, we're already planning it. Either 50 or 100. If you survive, if this podcast survives long enough.
The other thing too, mentioned in the first chapter, the armor and the weapons, which is not in the movie.
Is it the first time military power armor has been mentioned in any sci-fi?
That was something I kind of looked into. It was mentioned apparently at the end of a guy called E.E. Smith Lensman in Galactic Patrol.
Oh.
I'm not sure how much detail goes into it. I don't know this author. It looks like Heinlein was kind of the first guy to kind of run with it.
Okay. So this other guy, how old is that?
That was like 1930 or something like that. You know, you love your Fallout or you love your other kind of games and things like this. You know, you should be thanking Heinlein for this. You know, he was like the pioneer of pushing this into sort of mainstream sci-fi, I think. It's cool stuff. Yeah. It's awesome. It does pop up in back to the movies. I only watched 2 of them. The first one, of course, and the later animation one with the...
I watched all of them, don't watch them. That's all I'm gonna say. Like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. Starship Troopers sequels. Don't even talk to me about Starship Troopers sequels. So yes, that's all about that.
Alright. So also it mentions that squad, that he's a Rajnik.
I don't know how you pronounce those. In my mind, it was Rajniks.
Rajniks, yes, Rajniks.
I don't know that's correct.
Yes, it is Rajniks, Roughnecks. He bought it at the end. He's not even in the book. He's a dead character.
Oh.
Jelly is in command of the...
Oh, okay. I forgot that. Okay, yes.
Yeah. So in the movie, Rajnik is the teacher, but he's actually Dubar in the book.
So let's do I'll do like a super short summary because not much happens like actually in this book, but then we'll talk about like the ideas.
Yes.
So what happens is that we get a chapter about this action-packed like scene that Rico's, that's the same character in the movie, Rico's early life where he graduates and he's trying to decide what to do with his life, and he's got his friends, Carmen, the girl that didn't shave her head in the movie, and another, what's his name, Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, no, yeah, Carl. Who's a psychic in the movie, but I think in the book he's like...
scientist. Both Carmen and Carl are reasonable, so they're going into science and like pilots. And,
just thinking Denise Richards with the shaved head.
They should have done that. It would have been interesting.
Still hot. Anyway.
My God. So it all revolves around his early life and joining the military.
So Carl, he's the one that decides that he's going to do a period of service, because period of service guarantees voting rights or suffrage, where Rico's not really even considering it, but his buddy Carl kind of does everything with Carl, and so he decides to follow Carl into the recruitment. So we should say that the setting is that the world government is governed by military like seniors. And the right to be a full citizen is to go through military service. And if you do that, you have the right to vote, hold public office, and actually mean something as far as the government is concerned. If you don't do that, you basically nobody. No? I mean, this is the thing that I think people misunderstand. Later in the book, they take a trip to Toronto or somewhere, like in Canada, and he describes the town as very capitalistic. Everyone's sort of dressed very differently. It's very individualist. Rico's family has a long history in business for the past 100 years. They basically said, we've stayed out of politics. We're not interested in it, kind of thing.
Okay.
The only thing that service will guarantee is suffrage. And I don't think there's really anything majorly
I thought
different.
The point was that you can literally never vote if you don't do this.
Voting's overrated.
Okay, but I mean, like, deciding on the
Yes.
person on power can only be done if you went through the military service.
Yes.
So therefore, everything's under the military.
Yes, but we're really jumping around here. So when the guy at the recruiting desk, we're kind of going back to when Carl and Rico go to join. There's a big difference in the movie as well. Mm-hmm. Where in the movie they're making this sort of statement about, war is horrible because the guy's got no legs or no arms kind of thing. Kind of thing. Yes. Where the guy at the recruiting desk in the book, he has no legs or arms as well. But he says, I just put this horror show on as an act because I have limbs and stuff I can connect later that look very natural because we don't want you to join up.
Yes, that was already interesting. I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
The guy is literally bluntly trying to put him off.
Yeah, don't join. Yeah. And he says as well, like, even if a guy came in who was blind in a wheelchair, we'd have to accept you. We'd have to find some kind of job for you because that's what the contract is.
Yes.
So they're actively sort of discouraging people from joining up because they're not in the wartime either, actually, at that stage as well.
Yeah, the book starts without any war going on. So that was already interesting. I didn't expect that. But Rico, the main character, he just stubbornly joins the military because he wants to spy his father.
His father had plans for him to sort of go to Harvard, take over the family business. I want you to follow my footsteps. We're a rich family. We've had a long history. We say our politics. Also, he made a comment about the military is kind of a waste. I quite liked it. I liked the father because he was saying the military is kind of a waste of tax money. It's just supporting idiots who couldn't find anything else to do.
Yes.
And, it's a form of welfare kind of thing like this. I was like, yeah, maybe he's got a point.
Yeah, so everybody's got a point in this book. There's no, mute or dumb ideas.
And then later on, we find out the father does something different as well. So
so this is, I want to say, every boy and man has daddy issues, I feel like. And every teenager wants to spy their father, I feel like. There's always this rivalry.
Well, there's always that rebellion, I think, of everyone growing up. That, they want to disobey the parents.
So I was led to think that Rico is a dumb idiot and he wants to just do whatever his parents don't want to do and he just wants to go in the military because that's the only thing he can think of right now to be cool. That's what I got out of this character.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that much. I think originally he was trying to... Was he trying to impress Carmen or something? He said he wanted to be...
Yes, impress the girl, say fuck you to my father. That's his motivation.
Yeah.
Which was felt very real.
So he's like, I'm going to be a space pilot too. And they're like, no.
So he gets in the sign-up process and they couldn't find any job for him at all.
Well, they asked him about his relationship with dogs in the past. Pet.
Yeah, so they're considering him to be a dog.
The neo-dogs.
What do you call this position? Like dog wrangler?
Go and capture the dogs. No,
dog partner.
Yeah.
Almost. So that's a fun thing that I was kind of disappointed that didn't happen more in the book. I was hoping there would be dogs coming up in the later sections.
It does go a little bit into about the neo-dogs later, about how when the neo-dogs come across the bugs, the neo-dogs just sort of blow themselves up.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they're terrified of them.
Okay, so it did actually happen a little bit.
I think that was sort of like the second last thing on his list of options to do or something. Because mobile infantry was like the last thing he wanted to do.
Yes, it's the one but worst.
Yes. You're a grunt.
I think it's psycho dogs.
Psycho dogs? Okay. I thought they called the dogs neo-dogs, but...
Some kind of special dogs.
Okay.
They don't describe what they are, but they have a super strong relationship with the men who take care of them, the soldiers, and the soldiers would rather die than have the dog die. It's like...
Yeah, if the soldier dies, the most humane thing to do is put down the dog. And if the dog dies, they just sort of have to kind of put the human back together mentally.
It sounds like the most interesting plot point in the story following never is used. I feel like it's a wasted opportunity.
Really? All I can think about, I want to be in the neo-dog squad.
Really?
Yes.
Sounds a little bit perverted from what they said.
Makes sense. Okay.
I was very curious and they didn't say anything about it.
The dogs can talk.
Yes, that's what I want to say, yes. So it's so interesting. Like, please make a spin-off series about psycho dogs, like Starship Troopers.
So he's finally decided to join up. They give him a cooling off period, but he goes through with it.
So he joins the military, like the
mobile
troops,
infantry,
the local infantry, the lowest possible.
Basically, it sounds like the grunts, but it seems like a bit more kind of more high tech than that, of course. But But yeah.
So he goes through the training, and I really like the detail that they shoot them with real bullets.
Well, they put at the beginning, when they're encouraging them to kind of take cover or duck or whatever like that, we're going to put one live round in every 500.
Exactly.
And then if you're still not doing it, we're going to put in every 200, and then it just keeps getting lower and
I
lower.
was like, damn!
And
This is
then
some real shit.
the one that I was laughing to, the guy who got the scar across his ass.
Yes. Exactly. So it actually put stakes on like events that wouldn't matter at all. So I was very surprised.
What did you think about the character Zim? He's in the movie too.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah.
So maybe I failed again. So let me try again to like sum this up, and then we can get
Okay,
into the details. So he gets into the training, and he gets like promoted, and he keeps like advancing. He keeps advancing through this military structure until he becomes somebody, corporal, lieutenant, something.
Yeah, I get confused with the military rankings too. He gets the little ribbons or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And throughout the book, we get like all this kind of like military structure, justification, explanation, how it really works. And I was really expecting the generals or these people in power, insert military name position, I was expecting them to be super bland and boring and like caricatures, and I was expecting to hate them, and they were very justified.
Yeah.
In everything they did.
Yeah.
It's just very surprising.
Across very human too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I didn't expect at all. So that's why this book is for military people, because they show the military insane people in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I've never seen in fiction before.
Well, he was in the military too, so I guess,
So he knows.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's not writing it from sort of like this sort of caricature kind of perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then we get to like the escalation of the conflict. So like we mentioned, the skinnies, they join them, they build an alliance, and they fight the bugs. And they get to this planet called Klendatu, which I want to quickly ask, have I heard this somewhere before?
No, I checked. I couldn't
thank
find
you.
any
Thank
other
you for
reference.
checking.
I was like, is this some Lovecraft thing? No, it's not.
I thought this
No.
might have been like there is the Earth Stood Still movie or this like old sci-fi, and there is some names that are similar, but I forgot the names. I
No,
thought it
I
might
could-
have been a reference.
No, the only reference I could find was to this book.
Okay, thank you for taking.
Yeah.
So I skipped a bunch of stuff, but anyways, what happens is that he gets trained and he becomes a proper soldier, and he keeps having lessons with this guy who's called Mr. Dubois, who gives lessons on ethics and morality, morals. And that's what we want to talk about the most. But before we do that, the conflict escalates, he becomes the leader, and the funniest thing happens at the end of the book where it all escalates to this final battle. And the character is like, this is gonna happen, let's get in there, and I passed out. The end. And I was like, this is so clever. Like, you get all this build up, no battle, no action, and then you're like craving this action. So excited, this finally gonna go down, she's gonna go down. And it doesn't have to.
And they build a lot of tension up.
Yeah, and all this tension happens. And it's so much better than if the action actually happened. I appreciate this so much. Similar thing in the Broken Earth trilogy. You get all this tension, and
I love that description too they give of this, the arachnids coming up through the ground, and they say if you're listening to it, it's going to sound like kind of like bacon
That was
frying.
awesome, yes.
I was like, I can imagine that. I was like, oh, that sounds so creepy.
they mentioned that they melt the stone or something. So it sounded cool. And that's why the movie took inspiration out of it. But anyway, I love this part. And then we get like another part where the father changes his mind and joins the military.
Yeah, he kind of goes into a description after, I think, they were living in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, I think, and it gets wiped out. Same in the movie, I think, as well. But when he was talking to a relative or a friend of the family or something, and he was talking about going to another planet or something like this, and that planet already being attacked or something like that, I think, by the bugs. And he mentioned that to the woman. The woman replies that, well, no, my friends are not in the military. It's fine, kind of thing. So his reasons for joining kind of a little complex. They're not as simple.
Yes, it's justified. It's justified.
Yeah.
And
his wife was killed, and sort of the people in his sort of business community or the sort of upper class community don't kind of really get the conflict as well. So
we get this reunion where they haven't met, the father and the son, and then the father joins the ranks, and they meet again. It's like this heartfelt moment without being heartfelt.
yeah, definitely.
And we get this explanation where the soldiers go into action. They get into this spaceship and they are dropped in the battle zone. And the main character always gets the shakes, in quotation mark.
Yes. And he talks about that in detail at the beginning, yes.
Which is, I feel like, inspired by a very real thing. which makes me very concerned and very worried about what it's actually like to be a soldier. Because I would imagine, even if nothing happened, I would be exactly that, like getting horrible shakes before, any actual conflict.
Yeah.
It's awful. So that puts it, in a way, it's kind of real grounded. And he cannot get rid of it, even though he's been in the military for years and years, and he's been the lieutenant now. He cannot get over this.
Yeah, and he describes he's had all the injections, he's had all the sort of hypnosis, he's gone through all the training to stop it. The doctors have checked him and said, like, there's nothing wrong with you, but he's still shaking.
Yes.
He's doing the drops. Yes.
When the father joins the military and serves under his son, that's what I told you you were asking me about.
Yeah, I didn't really pick up on it because I just like, whatever. But fair enough. Yeah, when I went back and checked, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe there is something in that.
This is the ultimate male fantasy that nobody wants to admit and now everybody needs to talk about. That's the issues with your father and how you wish you overcame them in a way, and you will never agree with your father because your father is a man. Never mind. But you always have these, disagreements. And it's a good thing. It's a natural thing that you leave your parents and you disagree about things. That's how you grow.
Yeah.
But you always want to make up, you always have to reunite, this.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult. In this book it happens.
Yeah, I think this is something I mentioned before, is like, I didn't pick that up in the book, but you mentioned it and picked it up, and when I went back and looked at it, I was like, okay, it makes sense now. I think everyone can kind of get something different from this.
There's a bunch of things that are clever.
Things that maybe one person might sort of just skim over and not kind of realize, and other people are like, well, something that's quite hard-hitting or something that kind of gets to them.
So just to finish, the father joins in, and unironically and very honestly, they make up and they understand each other, and the father is like, okay, when I had my opinions about the military being shit and all this, I was wrong. We need this because aliens are killing us.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, we're losing the war.
I'm going, even though I'm older now and I can't serve as well, I'm going to do as much as I can to be the best soldier. I'm going to serve under your command. You are the man now. I'm so proud of you. Oh my God. All the things every man wanted to hear from their fathers. I'm proud of you. You're doing the right thing. I was wrong. I'm so sorry I doubted you. Please go and let's do it. I'm in your squad. Let's crush them. And the son is like, my shakes stopped.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's great, because as I said, I just didn't really ring home with this.
So that was the thing that I felt like is another reason why this book is for men. Because it resonates with so many men. I feel like this is supposed to be talked about and nobody talks about it.
Okay.
So thank you for talking about this Heinlein. So this is like the plot. So the plot ends with him being now the experienced rough Rezchek, whatever he's called, and he's training the new people. That's the same in the movie, actually.
Okay, yes. Come on, you apes.
And they capture this brain bug, which was also in the movie.
Yeah, Operation Royalty or something, I think they call it in the book.
Which in the action scene they mention how the grunts, the workers, the bug soldiers, they kill themselves to protect the big bug and all this. It was kind of fun.
Well, basically, the bugs are in three groups: the queens, the workers, and the warriors. Warriors and workers don't look too much different. I think the workers run away, and the warriors will keep coming at you. Basically, they're controlled by the hive mind of the queen. It's kind of very obvious what this is supposed to be about. It's a critique of communism.
So the last mission was to capture this hive mind. That's what I want to mention. The other missions were just to close up the holes and stop the bugs and stuff. Yeah. So that's how the book ends. And as we said, this wasn't the point at all. The point was like what happens while he's training and all these morality lessons.
Yeah, true. Which is a lot of things.
There's a lot of things to talk about.
So we should kind of cherry pick the best parts, I guess.
I guess, yes.
Yeah.
So I have like 3 things I want to talk about, like ideas that I liked in the book.
Okay.
Maybe we can just take turns and pick a random thing you liked I want to talk about. If you want me to, I can begin.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that come up in the beginning is the military obedience. And they go through training and one incident happens, and that is that one of the soldiers falls into an anthill.
Yes.
And they make a point how you're not supposed to move when the general screams freeze.
Yes.
You cannot move under any circumstance because it could jeopardize the mission.
Yep.
And they practice it during the training, and this guy stands up and goes away because he was in an anthill.
Lying on an anthill, yeah.
Yeah, being eaten by ants. And then I forgot who slaps who. Like the soldier slaps the general, and the general punches him or
No.
something?
So the Zim's walking around with that cane to kind of like whack him. And then he whacks the kid who's lying on the anthill who moves. And then he pops up and turns around and hits Zim in the face.
Yes.
But this comes up later in the discussion and the court-martial kind of situation.
Yes.
Where he's... This is a lesson, kids.
Oh my god.
So...
Old man's
If you're ever arrested or stopped by the cops, first thing you do, shut your fucking mouth. Don't say anything. It's really simple. Shut the fuck up.
Yes.
This kid could have avoided a hell of a lot of fucking problems.
Yes.
But he had to tell his side of the story, which made it worse.
Yes.
So there you go, kids. Shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. Keep silent.
Paul
And then
Lessons
later.
101.
Yes. Don't. Oh, God. So he's brought in front of the higher ranking military guy.
That's fine, don't worry. Just insert rank name. I don't know these ranks. Just somebody who's like a rank official.
And I think Zim explains what happened, as in he moved and he hit him. And then the kid's like, but you didn't hear my side of the story. And it's like, And he said, yeah, I got up and I punched him one. He said, you did what? And it's like... You were just going to be, like, discharged and do a bit of extra work and everything. Nothing. Now we're going to fucking whip you. You idiot. So,
admitted of punching, which Zim tried to cover it up.
Yeah.
To be nice. And then he actually said it. So we get into this explanation of how the military structure works and how the people who are the corporals, the lieutenants, the people who manage the soldiers are actually nice and trying to push them into being good soldiers in a way that doesn't hurt them.
Yeah.
And it's not easy at all. And the people who don't understand it, like this guy, and try to tell their own story and they want to be pitied, are making it so much worse.
Yes.
And that's why they have to punish it so hard, because this is not acceptable at all. It doesn't help anything or anybody.
And these are clearly written rules that are posted every Sunday or something on the wall or whatever.
Exactly.
Like that. Where Zim was actually trying to kind of cover up for the guy. Not cover up for him, but saying, look, this is as far as I want to take it. That's it.
Yes.
But,
so we spoke, for example, about the what's it called? Right? Leather jacket, leather metal jacket, metal heavy jacket, heavy metal jacket. The movie, Heavy Metal Jacket, the movie.
Oh, Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, the movie. Too drunk.
Do your check.
I don't drink.
Okay.
Heavy Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. And that's 12 drunk points.
Yes.
So in that movie, they have this caricature lieutenant bastard, but we never get a sense of him being a reasonable person, do we?
Oh, the drill sergeant.
Yeah, the drill sergeant.
Yeah. He's just sort of like this hyper caricature, I guess, of a psycho drill sergeant.
Exactly. So that gave me more context for him from this book, but not at all from the movie. Which should have been in the movie. And I think they wanted to say this in the movie, but they couldn't because there's no time.
You mean in the Starship Troopers movie?
The Starship Troopers, they explained it pretty well, and it was great. But in the movie, there's no time to explain these relationships and what actually people are thinking. Sure. So that's why the movie, at least when I watched it, was understood as military is horrible. Drill sergeants are bastards. I hate everything about this. It doesn't make any sense at all. Why is this happening? Yeah, so they, just to finish this up, they portray Zim as a person who is trying his best, like he's pouring his heart out to be the best corporal general somebody and help these people become soldiers and suffer the least. And he's considering resignation because he let this person punch him and get in trouble so hard. Yeah. Which is so fresh, this point of view. That never happens in military sci-fi, whatever sci-fi movies. No. Please include this in movies. This is such an important point.
Or make people look human.
Exactly. Like this never happens in any fiction, and it's so important. That's why this book is good. Like it actually talks about these things. Yeah. So that's the first point. I was like, oh, this is very interesting, and thank you for bringing this up. Which now that we talk about it sounds super obvious.
Yeah, it does sound super obvious, I think, but
even if you told me this, somehow the book does a great job of driving it home well, so I actually can feel what it's like to be in this kind of circumstances.
Yes. All right.
So next point, do you want to say, or should I?
Yeah, there's something that was in the discussion with Duba about the concept of rights that I would like to talk about. Because everyone nowadays wants to talk about their fucking rights. Okay. And I think this is actually a very relevant point, actually, he made. The description of like society in decline or morality in decline kind of thing has been a theme I think we've looked at for the past 100 years or so or more. I don't agree with it. I don't think morality is ever in decline. I think cultures change, morals change, of course. But there is a point he does say about rights. And I found the quote here, actually. The basis of all morality is duty, a concept with the same relation to the group that self-interest has to individual. Nobody preached duty to these kids in a way that they could understand. That is, with a spanking. But the society they were in told them endlessly about their rights. The result should have been predictable, since a human being has no natural rights of any nature. And I do agree with that point, because I've sat in conversations with people who have some political complaint about a certain government or political party or something, blah, 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 blah. And I think so-and-so is a human right. No, it's not. It's just not. So, I mean, this is something we've, I think, created.
Of course. Obviously, it's a construct.
I'm not saying we shouldn't look at people with compassion or empathy. But when some people say, oh, so-and-so person is unhappy with certain thing, they say, sports is a human right. I'm like, no, you've completely created this. We don't have those things. So I quite like that discussion because especially you and me, we're from a very, very privileged background.
Yes.
But we constantly complaining about our rights.
I'm not.
I know, but a lot of people in our situation, especially from, say, a country like Australia that's very rich, people there are doing very well. People are treated very well. People have avenues to kind of put forth their complaints or grievances, whatever. But people could constantly go on about their rights.
It's a very much modern thing.
Yeah. So I like that discussion in the classroom.
There's a thing to talk about rights, and then there is thing of entitlement.
Yes, but no one's talking about actually responsibilities.
Exactly.
Or actually doing something. Actually.
You had a great point when you said that this book has different points, and you can take many things from it based on who you are, which is amazing that you thought about this, which I didn't think about at all. I had the same... This is my favorite part of the book. I took it in a completely different way. So that's great.
I mean, as I said, coming from a very Western rich background, I just think it's kind of ironic that people keep going on that give me my rights. You have so many rights.
Yes.
Already.
Yes.
Why don't you just take some responsibility?
Grumpy old uncle talking.
Yeah.
You irresponsible bastard. You ungrateful, irresponsible, entitled bastards.
No, I'm
just kidding, but I agree.
But as I said at the beginning, I don't think anything about morality or decline of morals. No, definitely not. Cultures change. I think the younger generations do quite well. They're very hardworking. They're very innovative. I have a lot of respect for them. But when people get on social media and whine about their rights, it just grates me.
This is definitely the book the youth needs. I feel like kind of not the book but the ideas. It's sad. I agree. Yes. Nowadays perception of what you're entitled to have is so twisted.
Yes.
So I agree.
Yeah. So someone says, Mr. Dewar had paused. Somebody took the bait. Sir, how about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And he says, yes, the unalienable rights. Each year someone quotes that magnificent poetry. Life. What right to life has a man who was drowning in the Pacific? The ocean will not hearken to his cries. What right to a life has a man who must die if he is to save his children?
So just to be clear, we're not making any harsh claims or decisions.
No, I am.
Okay. No, I wanted to say more that it's great that this book talks about this and has many points of view about it, which is awesome. Usually you get one point of view.
Yeah.
And in this book, they have this question, which this is definitely the best part of the book, I would think.
Okay.
And they have many points of view of the students, of the teacher, of meta perspective of the audience, of the reader, and everything has a meaning and you can take what you want from it. So it does an awesome job to make you think about all this.
Yeah.
I took from this part that people should be using more tough love.
Well, that was the whole thing about as well, the concept of a juvenile delinquent.
That's the part I wrote that was my second point.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're kind of on the same page, I think, of this. Yeah.
So he makes a point that the evolutionary mechanism of bringing people up or bringing children up or learning things has been perfected, using punishment to drill into people's heads that they shouldn't be doing something. And it works amazingly well. But recently, in recent history, we've been going away from that because it's too harsh and we should have our rights and we shouldn't be punishing people, we shouldn't be hitting people or this. So but obviously there's no clear answer.
No.
It's good this is brought up because it's never really talked about. It's just like I have to have my rights, I have to be safe, I have to be happy, I have to have my freedom, I have to have this and this and this. Yeah. But you're starting to veer off into a direction that's the opposite of, like, there's never a black and white answer.
No, definitely not. There's a concept of tough love, but I don't agree with, I'm very libertarian. I don't like things like corporal punishment. I don't like death penalty. I don't like any of those things at all. But I don't think we should be raising little monsters.
Exactly.
If a child's acting like a little shit, they should fucking be put in their place.
Yes.
I don't agree with violence to do it, but there should be some kind of boundary to treat your children. Shitty parents shouldn't be raising shitty kids. I mean, I've seen parents sort of, their children's having like a fucking tantrum and the parents trying to like reason with the child. It's like, the brain's not developed. They can't be reasoned with. I don't think you should hit the child either, but I think that some kind of boundary should be created.
There has to be boundaries set.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not black and white, but it's going too far in the other direction now.
Yes.
That's what this book is highlighting.
Yeah. Which is funny because it's 1951.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, I don't think morality is going down, which is what Heinlein was worried about, I think. But this classroom discussion does raise some very sort of contemporary points, I think, that are still very debatable.
It holds up super well, this book. I was surprised by that.
Was there anything else?
Yeah, so third point, the values in life. He says that people believe that the best things in life are free.
Yeah.
And he says utterly false. It's nonsense. Nothing is free. It just depends how you define value and what it actually means to have something has value. Which is so true. He makes a point about this. The student is disagreeing and they keep discussing about it. And he says, so I awarded you a medal to win the swimming championship. Here's your medal. It's official. You can use it and you can claim that it's official. Here it is. And you can keep it. And he's like, I don't care because I haven't actually swum.
Yeah, I haven't earned it. Yes.
And he's like, obviously, and this is what you were talking about. This was free for you, but it doesn't have any value because you haven't worked for it, obviously. But they do go into more detail and then explain how the price of something is so much more than just the monetary or physical value, which is obvious, but they explain it really well.
Yeah, I think he kind of goes on after that a bit of a Marxist critique as well, talking about the market as well, defining value.
So that was another one of the points that I really liked. Have you been ranting about this very much? So I guess we should probably wrap it up. But yes, so we haven't really spoiled anything. I don't know if we managed to explain the ideas. I hope so.
I think I just aired my own grievances.
Yeah, exactly. So you I didn't think about it in that sense that everybody finds something in this.
We have missed a part on that same topic about raising kids and stuff like that. The Dillinger character.
That's what I wanted to go into, and then I said like, okay, let's not repeat. But yes, that was.
So one of the guys who had escaped the boot camp and was found later to have murdered a small girl, but considered that he's still basically under the control of the military. They sort of give him punishment, which is, I think, the hanging, basically. So they're talking about, say, the concept of like shooting like a rabid dog, kind of thing like that. Can someone be cured about this? It's just kind of, as I said, I despise sort of any kind of capital punishment myself, because I just don't think the state should have power to decide who lives or die. That's just my viewpoint. But it goes on again into a philosophical discussion about, what should be done with this.
Exactly.
I think the main character, Rico, just says,
yeah, this was the point I laughed at. He was like, he died, goodbye, good night.
Yeah, I've had enough of this. I'm going to get some sleep, and he's gone. Yeah. But it leaves you something to...
But the reader is left with very heavy questions to consider.
Definitely.
Which this book does great. It doesn't give you a clear answer. It gives you a bunch of points of view.
Yes.
The main character is the person who is self-deprecating, doesn't care, and this is clearly what you should not be doing. The book doesn't say that, obviously, but that's why this is compelling and well written, because they give you all these things and it's like, okay, don't do this. And now you're left with what we've told you. And we haven't told you what to do, which is so good in this book.
Yeah, definitely.
They never tell you what you should think.
Yeah, I think that is actually probably the best point you could kind of get out of this book. It's not preaching to you. It's just posing questions.
Impossibly amazing to me that it's not preachy. It's so preachy, but it's not preachy.
it somehow like balances that fine line. It does it very well. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so we could talk about this for hours. I feel like there are so many things.
Definitely.
And I hope you've gotten some food for thought from our discussion. I would highly recommend reading this if you enjoy anything we talked about on this podcast, basically. If you enjoyed my rants about thought of the day and questions about...
Enjoyed my rants about young privileged people.
I mean it. This is the best book we've read on this podcast so far.
What would be your second? If you had to choose one.
Well, it depends on in which point of view. If you want to have it in general, I would pick the Dark Forest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good book.
Based on grand ideas, concepts. If you're picking it for enjoyment, the Project Hail Mary is my number one.
Okay.
But that doesn't leave you with much to ponder about. It's just fun.
Yeah, I told you I read it as well. For me, it's sort of like a lot of like engineering porn, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're into that, it's really good.
And in the future, I would love to read more from Heinlein. He is the person who you don't want to listen to, but you know he's right, and it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to talk about and think about. And the more this world gets into globalized culture and entitled rights, like we talked about, just like gender fluidity and all this, like imagine what Heinlein would say about it. It would be so funny. If Heinlein was alive today,
he'd grok it. Be like, yeah, I've been looking for something new. What would Heinlein? I think Heinlein wouldn't actually, like, coming from someone who's quite libertarian myself, I think he'd be the same as like, look, do what you want. As long as you're not infringing on other people's rights, it's fine. But, I mean, when you start sort of, like, I'm probably going to get cancelled after this podcast.
Get cancelled? What does that even mean?
I don't know. I'll start getting dogpiled on social media. But I mean, like, if me expressing an opinion that says, well, look, you and your rights is probably, like, you're overdoing it. Not that as I said, I think we should be empathetic towards other humans. We should be sympathetic. I don't like violence at all. But sometimes, pricks need to be pushed back against.
Exactly.
That sometimes happens. Things are complex. I don't like a binary kind of idea of right or wrong. Things are very grey. So I think, he would come from it as like, do what you want, but, don't come at me. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just writing literature.
Also, don't overdo things. There's nothing is black and white.
No, definitely not.
Dune reference. My favorite quote from all Dune books. So everything in moderation, especially moderation.
What does that mean?
It means that you should moderate things. But how you moderate things should also be moderated. And you shouldn't overdo how you overdo things. It's very self-meta-referential.
Yes.
And it basically tells you, don't be an idiot. And think about what you're doing. And if it doesn't make sense and is clearly wrong, please don't do that.
Yeah.
That's what this means. Moderation, everything in moderation, especially moderation, means you're trying to make yourself better in ways to limit yourself to go to a path. But if you overdo this effort to be good, it's gonna be bad. That's what
completely, I think. Be flexible. I think opinions change, cultures change, society changes. So, I mean, I keep an open mind to stuff, but I don't want to be stuck in this one opinion that I refuse to.
Obviously, that's yes.
So, anyway, kids, good luck with that.
So obviously we are two white men
telling everyone how to live.
Aging old men that have no issues in their life. So take this with a grain of salt. But anything you think about what we talked about, we highly recommend this book.
The first read, I really enjoyed it, and I just remember like having fun with it. And then when we just decided to do this podcast, I went back and read it again, and I was like, wow, that's actually really deep question. And it actually makes you really think and stop and ponder things. Challenges your own beliefs. Maybe some things you might feel a bit uncomfortable with, but I think that's fine too, because it's good to have people who read things that you disagree with.
Yes, exactly. That's what I value about this book. It's clearly saying things, and it's also clearly saying that it could be wrong itself.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what I appreciate.
Yeah.
So you don't have to believe this blindly.
No. So that's enough drunk
Yes.
rambling for today.
Okay, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome anytime you want to come back on this podcast. We might do the Harsh Mistress, the Moon to Harsh Mistress,
Yeah.
or the Stranger in Strange Land
Sure.
with other people.
Yeah, get someone who you think would maybe disagree with it.
Okay, I'll try it. Right, thank you so much
Yeah, thank you.
for listening. See you on the next episode. After having recorded this episode, Paul was seriously worried that we might get cancelled after this is released. So let us know at mindduckbooks@gmail.com. Are we cancelled? On the next episode, we are going to mix it up yet again with classic Japanese literature. Paulo, not Paul, but Paulo likes to indulge not only in depression but also classic literature, which I definitely don't. So join us next time for Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata.